Hi, and welcome to another devlog for our game Karvaros. So some of the feedback I received from the combat demo was that the game was a little too dark. Enemies maybe were too hard to kill, they wouldn't stop tracking you, but overall I would say the consensus would be that the combat was just lacking. That's what I want to address, is the combat. One of the big issues I have with the combat right now is that when there's multiple enemies, it's really easy to just get overwhelmed. So what I wanted to do in this video was I wanted to implement a dynamic enemy movement system, somewhat similar to Assassin's Creed and how they handle multiple enemies at once. The enemies tend to almost circle around the player and give the player some room, but they almost seem to take turns. And so I started putting together this little test scene, and I just used this bit of code here that basically makes it so I'm creating a set of positions in a circle around the player, and then I'm essentially assigning those as the destinations for my enemy AIs rather than just setting the player. And then I started adding some kind of randomness to the size of the ring, and then as well as just kind of rotating those positions in different angles so that the enemies are kind of moving around and not just sitting in almost a circle-like. And I started implementing cooldown, and it will check if a enemy is able to attack, and if that enemy is able to attack and the cooldown is ready, then it will randomly choose of all the enemies that are able to attack and give them the chance to attack. I wanted to start creating more of a specified versions for different enemies. So for example, the bush shrimp, we always intended them to be a little bit more like wolves, kind of stalking around the player. So I created this rotating more circular one where there wasn't too much strafing and it was more of gonna work for the bush shrimp. Then I implemented this into the actual game for the different creatures. It helps keep the stress on the player for fighting multiple enemies, but gives the player the ability to actually handle fighting multiple enemies. But I have some other ideas. For one, I wanted to redo all the animations for the enemies, and I wanted to set more of a charge up before their attack and then kind of like a charge down after the attack, giving the player a little bit more time to respond. The other thing I wanted to do was make it so the enemies can combo you, add more enemy response to being hit. There's some slight responsiveness to them taking damage, but I want there to be like slight flinching and then more kind of knockback. The other thing I really started doing here is I started to create more of a testing room rather than what I was using for the combat demo. Really just needed something where you would be in a small area and could test the players' controllers and mechanics, and then as well just be able to spawn anything in. So I created this actually using Pro Builder for the first time, but I decided it might be worth starting learning to do it, and it was pretty easy. It's nice that it comes with this stair function that you could just make stairs as a pre-made object, and then I guess you can actually put a whole map together using Pro Builder and then import that into something like Blender, and then you can do more modeling with it in Blender, which I didn't know that before, so it's pretty useful. The other thing I wanted to start doing for this testing room was I wanted to create a new user interface, just putting together a little window that the player could open when they're in the testing room and be able to choose to spawn a certain amount of different items or enemies. I'm not going to release this yet, but for the next devlog, so in a month or so, I might release this testing room as the new kind of demo to be able to play test. If you liked how I decided to do this video compared to the other ones, let me know in the comments, or if you haven't seen the other videos and so you're not sure, go check them out and also let me know. As for just kind of a personal note on what's been happening, I didn't get too much done in December and January just because between vacation for the holidays, my wife and I actually just moved, and then we just had a plumbing issue in the apartment we moved into, and then we had to move again. So that's been fun. But that's about it for this video. Oh, and before you go, consider subscribing and liking this video. And so if you're interested in this game and its development, go ahead and do that. Thanks.